Okay, we're live. My guest, he's my first guest. He's my friend Jerome. Jerome is what I would consider a salesman, if there's such a thing. A guy not ashamed to call himself a salesman. He's that guy that can sell anything, and he's exactly the kind of guy this podcast is for. So I thought it would be perfect to have him on first to kind of set the tone. I met Jerome in 2007. I was at a car dealership where we needed a used car manager. He was the superstar sales guy at another dealership in our group, and he wanted to get into management. So it was just a perfect fit. We brought him in. He lived up to his reputation. He was one of the best salesmen I've ever worked with, one of the strongest closers. Our styles complemented each other, a little bit of good cop, bad cop, and we went on to work together selling cars for the next 8 years or so, off and on. I learned a lot from this guy, and I like to think maybe he picked up a few chops from me too. So before Jerome sold cars, he was a pitchman, and that's where I kind of wanted to start, because I'm fascinated by those guys and fascinated what that life might be like. And I know he's got some good stories. So he was working on the road, doing home shows across US and Canada. And this is where he learned his skills. And he's now a business owner, and we're going to talk about that too. He's got a really cool business. He kind of turned his obsession into a business. His business is called Deadly Tattoo Supply, and I'll put that in the notes with links and all that. And we're going to get to that. So thanks for coming on the show. You're my first guest.
All right, let's see how it goes.
Do you consider yourself a salesman?
Yes.
All right. And here's the thing. Like, this is what I loved about working with you, is that you didn't have any hang-ups about calling yourself a salesman. You're proud of it. Like you like the challenge of taking on a new customer and turn it into a deal, turn it into a sale, where, a lot of people I worked with, they had, kind of a complex about it. Like, they didn't like to be thought of as salespeople. They'd call it something else. Yeah. Like at Toyota, they call us product advisors or whatever. So I want to start first, and you're gonna have to reach way back, because I know it was a long time ago, but working on the road as a pitchman, I'm fascinated by those guys. I wish I would have had the chance to see you in action, but I'm just curious how you got into that job.
Well, it's kind of like how anyone gets a job, right? Like, you fall into it. So I had a family that had done it before me, and they were coming to town, and I was just a kid. I was just turned 20, and they needed a cashier. So the pitchman does the selling, and then they can't do all the transactions, because then they couldn't continue on selling, right? So
you got to take the money.
Yeah, someone's got to take the money. Yeah. So
right.
My brother's like, hey, these guys pay like $8 an hour, and it's not hard work. You just take the money or whatever, right? So yeah. I go there, and I'm watching them do this demonstration to people, or pitching or whatever, right? So they would do it, and then they'd get bored and want to go for a drink or a cigarette or whatever, and they'd be like, yeah, if anyone comes up, just answer their questions. So I did it for home shows back then were like 10 days long, if you can believe that.
Right.
And so it was like, I did it, and then I did it, and then I did it, and then I was answering questions. And then I was like, this doesn't look very hard. So I just would start doing it on the breaks. And then the people would come back. And
it looks fucking hard to me.
Yeah, well, it's fun, right? Like, well, you're in sales, you know what it's like. You get the rush every single time, right? Like, that's why we sell stuff, is we want the rush.
Yeah.
Now you get to do it every 5 minutes. So,
right.
So what happened was the girl that I was working for was like, hey, let me see you do that again. So I started doing it, and then I just didn't stop, and I just kept doing it and doing it. And the owner came over, and he was watching, and he pulled her aside, and I'm like, oh, this guy sees that I'm kind of good at this, right? So he leaves, she comes back, and she's like, yeah, he just chewed my fucking head off. You can't do that anymore. He's pissed at me. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, day goes on, and that next day the guy comes up to me, and he's like, hey, you kind of like doing that, eh? And I'm like, oh man, that was so much fun. Sorry, I didn't mean to get anyone in trouble. He's like, no. What are you doing tomorrow? And I'm like, nothing. He's like, you want to come to Calgary? I'm like, yeah.
And where were you based out of at that time?
Vancouver.
Okay, right.
Yeah. So like I just moved to Vancouver to live with my brother. So I go home, and I'm like, guess what? I got this great job. I'm going to Calgary. He's like, the fuck you are. And then that was it. I left for Calgary, and I was gone until the summer.
So how long did you do that gig for?
6 years.
Because, yeah, like you supported a family on that gig,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What were some of the products that you pitched?
Okay.
What do you
So
remember?
like the speed cleaner was the first one that I pitched,
Yeah.
and it was a window cleaner made in Germany. Okay.
Ooh, that means it's good.
Yeah.
That's how you
That's
know
what
it's
we
good.
would say. So, it's good, but,
Yeah.
it was a squeegee, but the blade,
That was a speed cleaner.
yeah, the blade was on the same side as the pad. So when you would
Okay.
wash, it would automatically dry. Right. So
Right.
yeah. And then after that, I sold PVA mops that were indestructible, indestructible brooms called sweepas, which definitely everybody's heard of sweepas. Then
Yep.
jammies, and that turned into something later in pop culture with the Sham Wow, where
Yeah. What was that guy's name? He was like a famous
well,
pitchman.
yeah, I don't remember that guy's name. I met him a few times in California, but like in Canada, there was a real famous guy named Bucket Billy who used to sell them on the boardwalks in New Jersey
Okay.
and stuff like that. And then he ended up being the front man for OxyClean. So that was
Right.
yeah,
Billy Mays.
Billy Mays. But like in the pitch business, they always called him Bucket because
Right.
he would have his bucket with his chamois in it, and he'd, hey, what are you doing, lady? Look at this, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of how he got started. And like the pitch business was very similar to the carnival business, like the carnival barker, like, hey, I bet you can't break this, blah, 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 blah. And that's what you would do, is engage these
Yeah.
people. And that's why people can't do it, right? Like, imagine
Right. It's a performance.
Yeah, like
right. Like you got to gather. Like I've read a little bit about it, but you got to get a crowd going around. You got to hype it up. It's like a whole performance art.
it is. And so the crowd in the business, we call it a tip. I don't know why, but so
The tip.
yeah, so that's your tip, right? So
Right.
the person's walking by and you're like, hey, check this out, check this out. So say you were walking by, I don't really necessarily think that you're going to buy a window cleaner from me, right?
Yeah.
But you're kind of like the mark. You're the person that I'm using to bring more people in, right? So
right. So they see other people standing there. They're like, oh, there's something
yeah,
interesting.
no one
happening.
wants to be
Drawn
first.
it.
It like the
Right.
it's just like anything. When you walk into a store, you don't want to bother the salesperson.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be first. So you get the first person to stop, and you would talk to them and do stuff, but you don't actually go into your pitch until you've got the attention of a few other people looking, right? You don't even
So you
need them
got a
right.
tip.
Yeah. And then you say, oh yeah, we're here, check this out, or here, feel this, right? Look how dry this is. Actually, could you come over and just check this out? I want you to feel how dry
Put
this
it
is.
in his hands.
Yeah. This is real dish detergent, right? And you put it, and then, so you're drawing people in closer and closer. And then the people in the back don't mind coming in. And then now you've got your crowd. Now you go into your demonstration, right?
Right.
And so like,
You ever like totally blow that demo and like break the product or something?
I've seen a lot of people do worse than me. Like there was people that sliced their hands straight open, selling slicers, salsa makers, guys that the lady that taught me to sell the Ginsu knife, one time she hacked off half of her finger, and she didn't know what to do. So she just looked, and she stuck it in the bread, because we slice bread every demonstration. She just stuck it in the bread.
Oh, we'll come back to the Ginsu knife, because you told me a story about that I'll never forget. Okay, but I interrupted you because so you got your crowd. You go into your demonstration.
Yeah. So you go into your demonstration, and then so you create a problem, right? So we'll just use the speed cleaner. And we'd be like, no, everyone has dirty windows, right? So we would put cooking oil, real cooking oil, all over the window, and then hairspray all over the window, and then mess it all up. And if there was a kid there, you'd get the kid come up to do it and all that stuff, right? So you've created a problem, right? And then we would try and clean it with Windex. And of course, you're just moving the oil around, right? So it's like, well, what are we going to do, right? So you've created your problem, and now you're showing a solution. And of course, the speed cleaner is the best. And then you'd say how much you could buy it for on TV, right? And then why buying it from me was a better deal. And
what's funny too is when you say it's on TV, you're probably giving a little more credibility. Like, hey, you probably saw this on TV, right?
Yeah. That's the whole thing, is like, before the chamois was ever on TV, before there was a Sham Wow, we would always say, well, you've seen this on TV, and people be like, maybe I did see that on TV. But then it actually went on TV, and
Right.
now you don't need a salesperson. They'd be like, oh, I did this much money today. It's like, yeah, big deal. Anyone could have done that. Like,
Yeah.
go try selling a German-made window cleaner.
Yeah. So now you got your crowd. You've done your demo. Now you got to get
The money.
You got to get someone to hand over some cash.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got to ask for the money. And this is when you say that I learned to sell in the pitch business, you're 100% right. Like, the most important part of any sales pitch, no matter what you're selling, it doesn't matter, is asking for the money. And
yeah. And I remember you telling me that selling cars and training our new sales guys that, like, if you didn't ask for the money, you haven't really done your job. You just wasted everyone's time.
yeah,
right?
if the only thing you do in your sales demonstration is ask for the money, but like you would say ask for the order, whatever, then at least you've given yourself a chance, right? Like, if someone
Right.
walked up to me and I was selling thermoses, and someone's like, oh, what's unique about your thermos? And I was like, well, it's $25. At least I have a chance of getting a sale there. I wrote one time on one of our salespeople's desk, please don't be offended when I ask you to buy a car today.
I remember that. Yeah.
And it was because she was amazing at building rapport, and she would do great test drives, and her follow-up was perfect and everything, but she was afraid to ask.
Afraid to ask.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well,
Don't ask, don't get.
you're doing a great job of selling for someone else. So now you've got the people there, they've watched it, they're compelled, you've told them why it's the best thing. Now you have to make it look like a good value and ask for the money, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
you've seen these on TV, they're $40. That's of course American. And then you have to add shipping and duty. By the time it gets to your door, you're looking at like $60 for this, right? So here you can get it for $29.99.
Show special today on.
Show special. I only got 10 left, right? And we take Visa, MasterCard, American Express.
You got like 10,000 left.
Yeah. We got a semi truck in the back full, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is that the people, when you're selling the chamois or something like that, right? They're not always paying for the product. They're paying for the experience. They're paying for a bit of fun. Like, if you think about it, you just got entertained, and it's something that you tell your friends, and a lot of people go home and try these things out, and they never seem to work as well for
They
them.
probably love going to those shows.
Like
Right?
$20, right? Like, and it's a good time, and it's wonderful. And what you really learn from that is a skill that you'll use for the rest of your life, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember, actually, I'll go back a little bit. So you described the crowd. That's your tip, or the first guy that you can get to engage with. Here's your mark. So, like, if anyone else watches this and they're in that pitchman business, like, what are some other kind of inside jokes or lingo that only they would understand?
Well, there's a thing called a stick, which is like a shill in the crowd that will be like.
I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
The first guy to give you the $20 or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
it's like oh, I'll take one, right? And
yeah,
it's something that you never plan, and you would never make it part of your demonstration. What happens is, I've seen at the P&E in Vancouver, literally 50 people watching a chamois demonstration, right?
Yeah.
And they're all laughing their heads off, and they're all having a great time. And it's like, you know what? $20. You know what? I'll make it even better. If you pay by cash, no tax, $20 bill. I can do this for only 5 people. First 5 $20 bills I see, and everyone just stands there like this.
You need that first guy to put his.
So
his money in
say
there.
you and me are walking to go for a coffee or something, and I saw that happen. I'd be like, I'll get one, and I'd throw out a $20, and
Just as a bro.
yeah, just as like, well, they give you the $20 back later, right? But but what happens is everybody reaches at the same time. It's just nobody wants to be the first one.
Yeah.
It's kind of a part of the business that I would say today probably doesn't happen anymore, unless it was prearranged or something like that. Was never. It's not meant to be deceitful or anything. It's really just to break the ice. Yeah.
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 No, and it teaches you something about human behavior too, right? Like that whole thing about nobody wanting to go first. Like it's probably in the back of your mind, you've planted a seed. Like, okay, this means something, and that's going to come in handy later with other stuff you're going to do, right?
Oh, definitely. It's it's the most important thing is that like nobody wants to be first, but it's when you're in the pitch business, you have 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes to create a crowd, get their attention, show them something compelling, either make them laugh or show them how it could actually be used at home. Because like the first guy that I worked for, it was more of a entertain the people, you'll get the money, right? But there was other factions in it that were selling products in the demonstrations type of sales that were $100 plus. Now they can be $5,000 plus, right? But it's
so okay. Tell me that you're selling Ginsu knives.
Yep.
I don't know if you know the story I'm thinking of, but it made me laugh so hard about how like you basically destroy a knife doing the demo and then put it back in the box. And sell it.
Well, it's the Ginsu knife's been around forever, right? So So every time that you do a demonstration, you use a brand new knife. And you do it right in front of everybody. You're like, this
take it out of
is
the
the Ginsu knife. And you open up the package and you take it out, right? Yeah. And then you cut a tomato, you cut a piece of bread, you cut it as thin as you can and everything, right? And then you take out a hammer, okay? And you start sawing this hammer, right?
Yeah.
And then you flip it upside down and you knock it on the table and there's a pile of stuff there. And you say, well, that either came from the hammer or it came from the knife. And if it came from the knife, I'm going to have a hard time cutting that bread. So you cut the bread and it's perfect, right? But what you've done is just basically made this knife smooth like this. And then you put it down. Yeah, and then you put it back in the package, you put it, and then, it gets sold. But luckily with those, they come with a lifetime guarantee. So you get a brand new one when you find out.
It sounds like you're still selling them. So I love that place to like kind of hone your skills and learn a lot about human behavior and stuff. But the other thing that's kind of cool too is you traveled a lot. Like you mentioned, you met a guy in California. You put on a lot of miles going all over the
a lot of miles. Right? Like there was a circuit, right? So you'd go Calgary, Edmonton, Saskatoon, Winnipeg, Toronto, and then on the way back you'd do all the smaller towns like Regina, Brandon. There's shows everywhere. Anywhere there's a show, you can sell something. You could set up a chamois booth or anything like that at any show. Some of the best shows have nothing to do with what you would think you're doing. Like, you sell a chamois at a car show. It makes sense. Guys like using chamois on cars, right? But, you sell massagers at the dental show. It's like, you're going to a dentist show? It's like, dentists love massages, right? So, so there's always work. You could work 52 weeks a year.
How's the money?
The money at the time you think is wonderful, right?
Because you're 20.
Yeah, I'm a young guy, and I work for a weekend, and I'm like, I have like this wad of money now. Oh, this is wonderful. And then there was people that had been in the business for 20 years or whatever, and they're like, listen, kid, you got to save 20% of that, and then you got to save 10% for this and all that stuff. And I'd be looking at them like, huh?
For what?
And I would have spent all my money before I got to the next show, right?
Yeah. And you owe the canteen.
Well, yeah, and a lot of times I'd have to say to my boss, like, hey, could I borrow a couple $100s? And here's 400. Here's 400. And then, but it was just like a perpetual thing where I think the person that is willing to pack a bag and travel across Canada and then other places, right, is also like the saving of their money isn't their number one priority.
That's not happening.
Yeah,
no, that's not happening.
It's like I'm doing.
What a cool thing for a young man to do, right? To just go out on the road and have fun and make cash on the weekends and stuff, right?
Well, for sure. Like there's guys that went to school like you to learn how to sell stuff, and I went to a different type of school, right? Like I learned on the road. Like I kind of got like a paid training.
Right. What was I going to ask? I forget. Anyways, you'd worked your way up. You'd sold different products, and I remember this story too. At some point, you pivot into selling cars, and you have a good story about the first Honda Civic that you sold.
Yeah.
Because you'd been selling these Sanyo massage chairs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just share that just for fun.
Well, I was selling Sanyo massage chairs. They were $5,000, and when you sold one, the the salesperson made 1,000, which sounds like a lot of money, but you could go to a show and not sell any. So it's like, you have to understand that you have to be compensated, right?
Right.
So anyways, I decided I didn't want to travel anymore. I was going to stay at home. So I was like, well, I sell massage chairs for 5,000 and I make 1,000. Cars are around $20,000. So you probably make about $4,000 every time you sell one. And I thought you'd sell like 1 or 2 or maybe 3 cars a month kind of thing. Right. Yeah. So then I get there and they're talking to me and I could see the managers looking at each other and they're like, we need to hire this guy before he goes somewhere else. Right.
Yeah. Turn him loose.
And so they offered me a job on the spot and I was like, sure. Okay. So I went there, I went through their training, which was just awful. And then finally they let me on the sales floor. I met a mother and daughter and I sold them both a Civic. And I was so excited, I couldn't wait. So I got my commission slip a few days later after they picked it up and I looked and it was $200 per car.
Yeah. And
I looked at it and I went to my manager's office and I said, I quit. This is absolutely like, you guys are like con artists. Like this is like literally the biggest scam I've ever seen in my life. I just sold $40,000 worth of equipment and I got $400. And they're like, no, like you're going to do that every day. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, no, like they were like, Jerome, I'm telling you right now, you're going to sell 1 or 2 cars every single day. And I'm like, this is crazy. So they had to like show me like pay stubs and commission slips of other people just to get me to go back to work. And I was just absolutely shocked how little a car salesman was paid. But I also didn't realize like at that time, the store I was working at was selling like 300 cars a month.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're probably running circles around the other guys on the sales floor.
Yeah, I drove them crazy, like literally crazy. And the manager, so like there's a new car manager and a used car manager. The used car manager took a liking to me immediately. And he was like, those new car commissions are terrible, aren't they? You should sell used cars. You should sell used cars. And I'm like, why? He's like, well, you get higher commission. I'm like, yeah, I want to sell used cars. Yeah. I'm hijacking your conversation.
No. That's perfect. Yeah. Okay. So, one more thing about the Pitchman stuff, because it cracks me up. But like, there's always a fucking funny guy, an asshole in the crowd that wants to talk trash to you, and you guys probably love that because you put that guy in his place.
Well, it's like going to a comedy show and think you're going to make fun of the comedian, right? Like they've heard anything that you could possibly spout at them, right? There's certain things you block out because people walk by and they go, it slices, it dices. It's like, never heard that one before, right?
Good one.
Yeah. But, there is people that go out of their way to try and make your job difficult, right? Like, they suck, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, hey man, like take it easy here, or whatever. And then when they don't stop, there's some legendary ones where people be like, hey man, do I come to 7-Eleven at 3 a.m. and bug you when you're working? Can you just shut the fuck up, please? And then there, sometimes it gets out of control a little bit. But yeah, there's always comebacks for.
Always a funny guy, just working in sales all these years. I've like really had to, pretty early on, let go of any like irritability or any kind of animosity towards somebody trying to sell me something. This is like somebody trying to earn a living, right? So I never begrudge someone trying to earn their living, and like I kind of want to listen. I kind of want to hear their pitch. I want to hear what they have to say. I want to know, like, I want to see if they're any good, right? It's fun for me now, but not everyone's going to see it that way.
A real salesperson is the easiest client in the world.
Oh yeah.
Because we get it, right?
Yeah, I had $700 worth of shitty frozen meat in my freezer because the sales guy was so good.
Yeah, I love that.
So all right, so you pivot to selling cars. You want to come home every night. You're done working on the road. You got a family and stuff. Pretty quick, you worked your way up to probably a top performing guy, and then worked your way. I don't know how long that took you, just a couple of years to work your way into management, right? What was the biggest difference with the clients? Cause I think of like the pitchman, you're at a show for a weekend or a week, whatever. Those people that buy that product from you, you can kind of say whatever you want because you're definitely never going to see them again in your life, right? Is there a little bit of a shift? Did you have to get kind of your wrist slapped by managers a few times for like have to rein it in a little bit?
I mean, not really. Maybe I was oblivious to it a little bit. What the thing I would say about like if you're a career salesperson, right, is your skills are the same whether you're selling something for $20 or $20,000. When I started selling BMWs, I went there and I didn't sell anything for 3 weeks, and the guys on the floor there were kind of poking fun at me, and my clothes weren't as nice as theirs, and I didn't have the special pens and all this stuff. And I didn't fit in with this crowd. Like I drive in a shitty car and they're all, and I would look at these guys and I'd be like, man, these are real salesmen. These guys are what a real salesman is. And I'm out of my league and stuff like that. Right. And my manager pulled me in and he was like, what the fuck are you doing? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I saw you sell hundreds of cars and now you come here and you're treating these people differently. Like you're treating them like they're like this mystical customer.
Right. It's the same fucking job.
It's the same customer. He's like, treat the people the exact same way you treated them at Honda. And I was like, huh. And then I did. I just started being myself again. And I was just like, what are you looking for? And just started treating people like the thing that you and I know that most people don't know is that if somebody is going into your business, they're there to buy something.
Yeah.
And
especially walking into a car dealership showroom, like they know what they're in for.
Yeah. So I used to use that to my advantage when I was a salesperson. When I was a manager, I had to reverse it, right? But as a salesperson, I would go every day. I would get my coffee and I would go around the floor and be like, man, the only tire kickers here today. There's nobody's buying. The economy's shit. Ford's doing way better than us. Plus I heard they're paying 3 times what we're paying. And I would like try and throw some shit around, right?
You're getting in their heads.
Yeah. And then I would go and have a great day. And I just be like, oh, I just got lucky. Right. But then as a salesperson or as a manager, I had to do the exact opposite and be like, guys, no one is coming in here to kick tires. No one is here wondering what it's like to drive a Hyundai Elantra. Okay. It's like, and every business has it. It's in car sales. I'm sure, like, I don't know many realtors other than you. I'm sure there's realtors that are like, oh man, I'm getting so many tire kickers lately. Right.
Oh yeah. All the time. It's the same complaints, except the difference is most of them have no sales experience or sales skills at all. So
it's like, if you think about it, it's like, this person contacted you to drive around to look at houses because they're curious what other people's curtains look like or something. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world. If somebody is asking to see houses, they're going to buy a house.
Yeah.
And
you got to ask for the money.
Yeah. And that's all it is. It's like, we used to tell our salespeople, if someone comes in the door today, they're buying a car. In the next few weeks, they're going to be driving a car.
Yeah. I remember, going to BMW and, from Hyundai and having that same experience, like, this is a different kind of client. And I'd worked at Toyota too, but actually, something kind of clicked in my head. I had this one buyer that was, he was a dentist and I talked him into this car, and what he really cared about is how like he would look in it. Right. And it was like click, this thing went off in my head. It's like, these people are actually way easier to close, right? They don't have a fucking spreadsheet with every feature they want. They're just like, they want the car that makes them feel a certain way or makes them perceived a certain way. And then I started having fun with it. And then it just got easier from there. I remember, Jerome and I managed this BMW dealership together, and it was a really underperforming store that had never made any money, and we just lit that fucking place on fire. We built a good team, we had fun, and we outperformed the stores that we shouldn't have even been in the same
And
conversation.
everyone else
It was so
hated
much fun.
us. All the other,
Yes.
all the other people that were doing it the BMW way hated us because, well, these guys, all they do is have fun. These guys don't take anything seriously. These guys don't wear 3-piece suits to work, right? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
We didn't have the right watch and the right
Yeah.
pen. Well, eventually we got the watch. Well, you got the watch.
Yeah.
I got the pen.
I got a pen. Taylor, I mean, this was bound to happen because I'm in my store. I got to go help somebody here.
Yeah. Okay.
Give me
You know
one
what?
sec.
Yeah, come right back.
Edit this out.
Edit it out later. No problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's cool. Did you ask for the sale?
Yeah. He was a tough client.
Yeah. So actually, that's a good opportunity to pivot because you sold cars all those years, got through management and all that. I remember, how long is it? What year is it? This was, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. We were working at a Toyota store together. We were both like into tattoos, and you got like obsessed with tattoos, and then you started kind of like really getting into the art and the artists, and you had your favorite artists, and then you had like your legs sleeved and your arms sleeved, and pretty soon you're running out of skin yet. And then it just became like an obsession for you because, I don't know, maybe you're just wired that way. You don't take a casual interest in anything, just get totally obsessed and infatuated with it. But you've turned that into your own business. So you're at your store right now, Deadly Tattoo Supply, and you told me the other day a little bit about how your business works, and it's such a long way from, you know, standing in a booth pitching chamois, and a lot of the same stuff still applies, but now your relationship with a buyer is totally different. You have you know, your customers are artists, and your customer loyalty is super important, right? So like, what have you been able to sort of carry forward to what you're doing now? Because you sell tattoo supplies, needles and guns and ink and antiseptics and the rest of it, right? You market yourself to tattoo artists, you sponsor them, you go to the shows and stuff. What are you still using from your early days back in the home shows, and then what's totally different? I
guess the biggest connection would be social media these days, right? So creating content is very similar to creating a demonstration or a pitch or whatever. Like, essentially, when you're creating content, you're trying to engage a client, right? We have brands that we're loyal to and that we carry specifically here. So, you know, like the other day, I made a reel. It took me all day to make. I tagged the manufacturer. They included us on their social media page, which is a pretty big deal, you know, and all of this like great work, and put music to it and lettering on it and everything. I got 58 likes on it. So
nice.
Yeah. So, you know, it's like, well, that didn't really work, you know, the demonstration there. The other day I did a post, just a regular post explaining about one of my favorite artists and what she's up to. And it got almost 3,000 likes and something like 70 shares. So it's, you know, learning how to engage with clients never stops. I mean, like, I've used you as an example many, many, many times, where when you think of a realtor, you think of, you know, someone that's overdressed and, you know, driving big fancy cars and all that stuff. I'm like,
white BMW.
Yeah. So, and I'm like, well, my buddy Taylor had a marketing idea where he was going to put his face on a bus bench, and then also a Sharpie attached to a chain, so you could draw the mustaches and stuff on him right on there. And it's like, that is.
I'm so impressed you remember that, because I still think about it all the time, and I haven't had the fucking guts to do it. But
it's such a good idea. But I mean, if you look at your page, and then you look at, even the people in your office probably think you're out of your mind, because, you know, like, it's like, oh,
how does this asshole sell so many houses?
Oh, Taylor King Real Estate. I'm going to look on that. And it's like, here's my mullet update. My mullet's starting to grow in. And it's like, but it's you're engaging with the people, right?
Yeah.
You're engaging with them, and that's what
I'm trying to be authentic, right? Like, so like if I'm going to work with someone, I'm getting pretty involved in their life. So I want it to be authentic, and I want people to know who I really am, and just be myself, right? So it's probably a lot with you. Like you're dealing with, like it's super niche, like with this really tight community of tattoo artists, and you don't have to answer this, but probably a lot of them are a pain in the ass, and
well,
don't say anything.
every industry has pains in the asses, right?
True. Yeah.
There's,
I got mine. Yeah.
yeah, there's no such thing as an industry without a pain in the ass. But
True.
I can tell you, literally every day that I come here is an exciting day for me. These people are fun. They don't judge. They've got hilarious stories, and they make these works of art that blow me away.
Yeah.
Like literally,
Yeah.
I get to watch art every single day that blows my mind, and it's super exciting, and I'm a part of it.
Yeah.
And it's,
Well, I love that you've been able to take something that you're passionate about and turn it into like a viable, but not just a viable, but like a thriving business.
you know what's funny is we have a tattoo show coming up here in Calgary.
Yeah.
So if you've ever been to a tattoo show, it's, the pipe and drape that divides all the booths, right? And then everyone is in their booth, right? Well, if you go to the home show, which is on this weekend in Calgary, there'll be these extravagant displays. Like people spend tens of $1,000s on their displays. And then there'll also be the pitchman there and everything else, right? Well, if you go to a tattoo show, people bring like a little banner and they hang it on the back of their drape. Like literally, like, yeah, it's like some of them forget to bring a banner and they like do a handwritten sign and like tape it on the drape. So,
but they have clout. They have their
they
their
do,
fans,
but
right?
it's like they're artists. They're not trade show specialists.
Yeah, there's a certain honesty to that, right?
There is a certain honesty to it, but I reached out to one of my old employers a couple of weeks ago and said, "Hey, I'm doing the tattoo show in Calgary. Could I borrow one of your booths?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "What do you mean?" And so I explained it to him, and he's like, "Yeah, absolutely." So we're going to actually set up a real trade show booth for the show that's coming up next month.
Nice.
And
check it out.
Use some of those things that that I learned back then to display the products in a way that normally is not displayed that way at these shows.
Right. So take it to a different level.
Yeah.
So, okay. But before Deadly Tattoo Supply, which is your current business, you had a few false starts. You tried a couple of other businesses and stuff. And this is one thing I feel about like good salespeople is that like, they're risk takers, right? Like you got a great idea. You're going to try it. If it doesn't work out, it's not going to ruin you and break your heart. You're going to try the next thing, right? Like, do you think that, having that ability to just take rejection or just being able to start over, is that critical for anyone in your business?
Well, it's a bit of a leading question. Obviously, obviously rejection is the biggest part of our business, right? It's the number one thing is people don't like to be told no, and they don't like to hear no.
Yeah.
But salespeople are immune to that now, where we can.
That's our superpower, right?
Our superpower, right? So it's like, and that's the thing is, when I started the tattoo supply business, it probably was a crazy idea, right? But it was something that I was excited to do, and the fear of rejection is something that is hard for me to understand, because everybody knows you don't ask, you don't get, right? And I feel like most people are more comfortable complaining about their situation that they don't like than doing something about it to try something different, because they're afraid of failure. And failure is just another way of saying no, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like so you try and sell something to someone and they say no, you could also be considered a complete failure in that situation, right?
Yeah.
Like we all know people in our lives that have a special talent or something that they could do, but they're so afraid of failure that they go to the job that underpays them and that they hate.
Yeah.
And if they would just try, right? Here's the thing about being a serial entrepreneur is that everybody tells you why your idea is bad.
Yeah.
I've never,
Yeah.
I've never pitched an idea to someone where they weren't like, yeah, but you know, it's like,
Here's why this won't work.
yeah, like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll look out for that then, you know?
Well, they're actually helping you though,
Well,
right?
they are, but it's usually pretty obvious stuff. Like, it's
Right.
like,
That you've already thought of it.
yeah, I mean, like when you got into real estate, the market was at its like complete low or collapse.
You
Or
know how many people told me like, really? Really now? You're going into real estate? Are you sure?
yeah, it's like,
Yeah, I'm sure.
you know, interest rates are really high or something like that. Just something.
Yeah.
And what they're really saying to you is, I'm a complete chicken shit and would never take the
Yeah.
fucking risk that you're willing to take right now. That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
I see it so often where people are just afraid to put themselves out there, and they say, well, you know, that's not good for this reason and that reason. It's like, no, you're afraid that it's going to fail.
Mm-hmm. And you don't have the balls to handle that.
Yeah. And the difference between someone like me and that person is, I don't give a fuck if it fails.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the difference, man. You know what? Speaking of creating content, you've given me like a lot of real good little nuggets and clips that are going to be great here. So I don't know, we're about 45 minutes in. Really appreciate you doing this with me. It was a lot of fun, and I hope lots of people see this and hear your stories. And well, thanks again. And also, you know, really happy to see all the success you're having with your shop, and we'll come check you out at the tattoo show.
Thanks, man. I would appreciate that. And if I could just say to you quick, nobody wants to see what you're fucking cooking for dinner. Stop that. Nobody cares.
Hey, I get lots of comments on that shit, but
No, it's
I'll take that into consideration.
look, here's the pork roast I'm feeding my family. Like, I don't give a fuck.
Hey, well, you looked at it, so fuck, it's working.
All right, man. Have a good day.
That was engagement. See ya.
Bye.